Today we will be learning how to create variables in Python. And variables are basically just names given to some characters, numbers, strings, uh, etc. So, first, what I want you to do is copy this file just the way I have written it, exactly like this. Once you copy this entire file, I will explain to you what this means. So pause the video if you have to in order to copy this file. Anyway, so you see here cars. This is a variable. Space in a car is also a variable. So names, like for example, my name is Bhargav, right? So variables are basically just that. Variables are just names assigned to some characters. In this case, it's a number. In this case of cars, it's a number, which is 200. In this case, space in a car. If you notice here, we have separated each characters in this variable name with an underscore. Now, underscore is just an imaginary way of spacing your text or a variable name. And it's pretty handy if you want to create long variable names. So make sure that the variable names you create aren't very confusing. You can even name this value of 200 instead of cars. You can even name it to be, say, X. But that wouldn't be so good, because if you did that further in the program, when you have to use the variable cars, you'd be confused. What exactly does X mean? So make sure that you name your variables in a way that you're able to remember what that particular variable exactly stands for, right? Like how Bhargav stands for the person who is teaching you this video right now. The same way, cars stands for 200. So what I mean to say by this is there are 200 cars. Now space in a car is 3.0, which is, I guess, the passenger space, but that I didn't specify. There are 50 drivers. Drivers is equal to 50. So in order to give a value to a variable, all you need to do is put in one is equal to sign right after that variable name, and after that equal to sign, just write your number or your string or whatever numerical calculations or formulas that you have to. So if you see here, cars is equal to 200, space in a car 3.0. I have named it 3.0 since it could also be integer. Drivers is equal to 50, passengers is equal to 100, cars not driven is equal to cars minus drivers. So if you see here, this is just a very basic formula which will subtract cars, which is 200, and subtract drivers from cars, which is 50. 50 will be subtracted from 200 and will be left with 150. So when you run your program, you'd get the answer. Cars not driven, cars driven is equal to drivers, since the same number of drivers would be the same number of cars that would be driven, right? Carpool capacity, this is another formula which we named here, which is cars driven, which is right here, which is equal to the number of drivers multiplied by space in a car, right? This is just a basic formula. If you don't understand it, just write this entire thing on pen and paper and you will definitely get it. I'm sure you will. Average passengers per car is equal to passengers divided by, this is a division sign if you didn't know already, divided by cars driven. So now we can do these calculations, but definitely Python needs a way of printing these answers, right? These are just variables. They wouldn't print in Python when you run Python. In order to print these, print these values, print these answers of these formulas, etc., you need to write such print statements, which I did right here. And I'll explain these statements one by one. The first statement is, whatever is enclosed inside this parentheses and inside these double quotes is known as a string, right? So this is a string. Then we close the double quotes, we put a comma, then we write cars, which was our variable right here. So then we again put a comma, then a space, and then double quotes, and then we write cars available. So when we write like this, there are cars available. So this 200 will directly be printed when you run the program. Get it? So this value, even if you change it, even if you say make it 100, even if you were to make it say 100, then there would be 100 cars available. If you change it to 300, there will be 300 cars available, right? So let's just keep it 200 for now. You can name your variable whatever you wish to, right? You can name it cars with 3 S's, but then you have to make sure that also here you enter 3 S's and not 1 or 2, right? But for simplicity, it's a good idea to just name the variables that you can remember the best, but make sure that you don't make any mistakes while typing in the variables. So the spelling mistakes, and there will definitely be spelling mistakes. Even as a pro level programmer, there are spelling mistakes. So make sure you try to minimize your spelling mistakes. And anyway, once you're done with this, once you're done writing this, I'll show you how when you run the program, how this thing will be printed. Then another print statement, which in this case, instead of cars, in this print statement, there will be number of drivers, which is the variable drivers, which will be printed right here between these two strings inside this print statement, right? So when you print this program out, drivers won't be printed here. I mean, drivers is obviously in this string, so drivers won't be printed twice. Here, the number 50, which we assign to the variable drivers, will be printed. Another print statement. Now you get the pattern, right? If you didn't, I'll still explain. This is the cars not driven. So this variable that we named here, make sure that whatever variable you're using here is already defined. It needs to be defined first in order to be able to be usable, right? So there will be, this is the first string, open and close double quotes, comma, space, cars not driven, which is our variable right here, whose formula which we defined here, cars minus drivers, and the exact answer after the calculations, which is 200 minus 50, which is 150. So 150 will be printed here, and then another string which says there will be dash empty cars. So imagine this print statement to be there will be dash empty cars, right? And the dash will be filled up by whatever answer that this formula, cars minus drivers, gives for this particular variable. This is a variable, right? And you get the pattern. It keeps on going like this. So this is just about it. Now what I want you to do is save the program. If you didn't get the program already, what I want you to do is please first copy this entire program in your text editor. Copy this program just the way it is, then save the program, and now open your terminal, type in Python 3 and drag and drop, hit enter. Of course, don't forget the space after Python 3. Don't forget the space after Python 3, please. Hit enter. Now you see here, I will open the uh, two things side by side in order for you to understand. So if you see here, these are just the print statements right here. This thing won't be printed since it isn't enclosed in the print statements. These are just variables to whom we have assigned certain values. We can change these values, we can name our variables whatever we want to, but for now just stick to these names for simplicity. And these are the print statements. So there are dash cars available, which is 200 in our case. So the first line would be there are 200 cars available. There are only 50 drivers, just like this thing. Cars not driven would be 150. There'd be 150 empty cars, which is exactly 200 minus 50, and so on and so forth. Now what I want you to do is make a few different programs on your own, give different variable names, and it need not be the same situation like of cars or passengers or drivers. Create another scenario on your own, define a few variables, separate these each words with underscores. Make sure you do that. Please don't forget to do that, and assign different values to them. Then write print statements just the way I have right now, and print these programs in your terminal. And if you don't understand something, in fact I would say that it's always a good idea to write a comment in English above each and every particular line. Like how, I'll give you an example, use this hash character and write this is my first variable, which I named as cars, and I assigned 200 to its value. Okay, so this is just an example of writing comments. Do more comments like this above each and every line so that you'll get a better understanding of what the line underneath exactly does. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.